AITA for leaving after my girlfriend made her ex's problems my responsibility? I'm Alex, 37, a guy who had been with Maren long enough that our friends automatically saved us 2 seats at every dinner. I knew how she liked her coffee, which side of the couch she claimed during movie nights, and how she could turn a normal question into a character flaw if she didn't want to answer it. We had been together almost 4 years. Not married, not engaged, but settled in that way where people start talking to you like your future is already penciled in. Our friends put us in the same group texts. Tyler would message, "Dinner at 7. Are you too good?" Nora would ask both of us what snacks we were bringing to game night. We had a shared calendar with birthdays, dinner reservations, family stuff, and the usual boring things that make a relationship feel like a life. I used to think that was the goal. Not fireworks every second, not constant reassurance, just a steady rhythm where you know someone and they know you back. Maren was 34, sharp, charming, and very good at sounding reasonable when she wanted her way. She could say something dismissive with a smile and make it feel like maybe you were the one being dramatic for hearing it. Most people liked her quickly. I did too. For a long time, I loved that she was independent and confident. I never wanted a relationship where we had to report every conversation or ask permission to exist outside of each other. That's why I didn't make a big deal when she first told me she and Drew were still friendly. Drew was her ex. They had dated before me. Their breakup, according to Maren, had been sad but not explosive. We were just better as memories than as a couple, she told me once while we were folding laundry in my living room. There's no unfinished business. I believed her. Or maybe I wanted to believe her because the alternative felt ugly and insecure. I didn't need her to pretend she had never loved anyone before me. I had a past too. Adults have history. Sometimes that history texts you about an old box of books, a family update, or a mutual friend. At first, that was all Drew was. One night, while we were eating takeout at my kitchen counter, Maren's phone lit up. She glanced at it, smiled a little, and turned it face down. "Drew?" I asked. She looked at me over her carton of noodles. "Yeah, he found some books of mine." "Cool. Are you grabbing them?" "Maybe." I told him I don't even know if I want them anymore. That was the whole conversation. I didn't care about a box of books. A few days later, she mentioned Drew's dad was having health problems and he had reached out because he was not great at processing things. She said it in that soft voice people use when they want you to see them as compassionate. I said, "That sounds hard. Just be careful with old emotional lanes." She laughed like I had made a tiny joke. "Old emotional lanes? You know what I mean." "I do. And you're cute when you try to be mature." At the time, I took that as affection. Looking back, it was probably the first time she made my boundaries sound like a personality quirk instead of something worth respecting. The contact picked up slowly. That was what made it hard to name. Drew texted about the books, then about his dad, then about some rough week he was having. Then he sent a picture of a song they used to like. Then Maren mentioned he might stop by the coffee place where she and Nora were meeting because he happened to be nearby. I paused when she said that. Drew is going to be there? No. Maybe. I don't know. Nora said she might invite him because they know each other too. Nora invited him? Maren reached for her purse like the conversation was already annoying. "Alex, it's coffee, not a motel room." I didn't say it was. "You kind of did with your face." I remember that line because it made me shut up. Not because it made sense, but because it put me in a position where defending myself would make me look guilty of the exact thing she was accusing me of. Later that afternoon, she texted me a picture of her coffee cup and Nora's hand in the background doing a peace sign. No Drew in the frame. I told myself I had overthought it. Then, 2 days later, Nora mentioned the coffee in the group chat. Nora, still laughing that Drew thought oat milk was a personality trait. Tyler, Drew was there. Maren, for like 10 minutes LOL. I stared at that message longer than I should have. 10 minutes. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe he really had just shown up. Maybe Maren hadn't mentioned it because she knew I would ask questions and she didn't want the headache. That evening, while we were cleaning up after dinner, I asked, "Why didn't you tell me Drew actually came to coffee?" Maren shut the dishwasher a little too hard. Because this reaction is exactly why. What reaction? I asked one question. "You're keeping score." "No. I found out from Nora. So now I have to submit a report every time someone says hi." I leaned against the counter and tried to keep my voice even. "That's not what I said." I'm asking why I keep finding out after the fact. Her face changed then. Not sad, not guilty. More like disappointed in me. He's not some threat, Alex. He's a person I used to care about. I can't shrink my life because you're uncomfortable. That line worked on me for a while. I hated the thought of being the guy who made his girlfriend shrink her life. I hated the thought of being the jealous boyfriend everyone whispers about after dinner. So I backed off. For a couple of weeks, things seemed normal. We watched movies. She fell asleep halfway through one with her feet tucked under my leg. We went to Tyler's for tacos and a board game that lasted too long. Marin laughed at my bad guesses. She squeezed my hand under the table. Those small things confused me, because if someone can still be that familiar and warm, you want to believe the problem is smaller than it feels. Then Drew started needing her in person. The first time, she told me at 8:15 on a Thursday night. We had just finished dinner, and I was rinsing plates. Marin stood near the doorway with her phone in both hands. Drew is having a rough night, she said. I might stop by for a little bit. I turned off the water. Tonight? Yeah. At his place. She sighed before I even finished the question. He doesn't have anyone else he feels comfortable talking to. That sounds like something a therapist would be better for. That's a weirdly cold thing to say. It's not cold. I'm just saying it's a lot for an ex to be the person you go to at night. She folded her arms. You trust me, or you don't. There it was. The door with only two choices. Either I trusted her, which meant saying nothing, or I didn't, which meant I was the problem. I trust you, I said. I don't love the setup. You don't have to love everything I do. She left 20 minutes later wearing jeans, a sweater, and the perfume she usually put on when we were going somewhere. I noticed and immediately hated myself for noticing. Marin had been the one to suggest location sharing almost a year before that. She said it made things easier when we were meeting up or running late. Transparency saves stupid questions, she had joked. It had never been a control thing. We both had it on. Half the time I forgot about it. That night, I remembered because she said she would be gone probably 40 minutes. 40 minutes became an hour and a half. Then 2 hours. Then 3. I didn't sit there watching the dot move around like some detective in a bad movie. I cleaned the kitchen. I put on a show I didn't follow. I checked once because I was tired and wanted to know whether to lock up. Her little circle was still sitting at Drew's place. When she came back, it was almost midnight. She walked in quietly, like quiet could make late smaller. Hey, she said. Hey. She took off her shoes by the door and avoided my eyes. I waited until she came into the kitchen for water. You were there a long time. Her shoulders tightened. So now you're watching my location? You turned it on and said it made things transparent. That's not the same as monitoring me. I checked because you said 40 minutes and it had been 3 hours. She put the glass down. I can't date someone who treats me like I need permission to have a life. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe how neatly she had moved the conversation away from what actually happened. I hadn't asked where she was. She had told me. I hadn't followed her. She had shared her location. I hadn't demanded she come home. I had asked why a quick stop at her ex's place turned into 3 hours. But somehow, I was standing there feeling like I had to prove I wasn't controlling. So I said, I'm not asking for control. I'm asking for honesty. Marin rubbed her forehead. You're making this so much bigger than it is. Maybe I was. That was the part that kept me stuck. After that, the details became small and slippery. The shared calendar started getting vague. Not all at once. Just enough to feel strange. Marin would add errand on a Tuesday evening, then delete it after the fact. Catch up appeared on a Saturday afternoon with no name attached. Once, Help D showed up for an hour and disappeared the next morning. When I asked about it, she said, Are we auditing calendar wording now? No, I said. I just noticed things getting deleted. Because you notice everything lately. The name in her phone changed too. At first it was Drew. Then D. Allen. Then DA. Then, for a few days, a nickname I didn't recognize until a notification preview showed the old thread beneath it. Again, none of it was a smoking gun by itself. That was the trick. She kept everything just small enough that I sounded ridiculous if I named it out loud. One night, a payment notification popped up on the shared card we used for dinners and subscriptions. It was from a restaurant we both liked. 2 entrees, 1 appetizer, 1 dessert. Marin had told me earlier she was dropping something off at Drew's and then going home because she was tired. I didn't text her right away. I sat on my couch with the notification open and felt something in me go quiet. When she called later, her voice was bright. Hey, you still up? Yeah. Sorry, long night. Drew was a mess. You had dinner? A pause. Small, but there. What? The shared card sent me a notification. Oh, yeah. He hadn't eaten, and I was starving. It wasn't a date, Alex. I didn't call it a date. You didn't have to. I'm not jealous of dinner, I said. I'm tired of learning the real version in pieces. She exhaled into the phone. I can't do this every time. I can't defend normal human kindness like I'm on trial. I looked at the coffee table where her mug from the night before was still sitting with a lipstick mark on it. The house felt too quiet. Then stop making normal things look hidden, I said. She hung up 10 minutes later after telling me she needed space from my energy. That was new too. My questions weren't questions anymore. They were energy. My discomfort was insecurity. My memory was scorekeeping. My boundary was control. The next public slip happened online. Marin posted a story from a wine bar, just a picture of 2 glasses and a corner of someone's sleeve. The caption said, "Much needed girl talk." I assumed she was with Lena because Lena was her closest friend and they did that kind of thing all the time. Then a friend of a friend tagged a photo from the same place. Marin was in the background near the window, laughing. Drew was beside her, his hand on the back of her chair. Not touching her exactly, just close enough that if I mentioned it, I knew how the conversation would go. I waited until the next day because I didn't trust myself to speak calmly. Was Drew at the wine bar with you? I asked while she was scrolling on her phone on my couch. Her thumb stopped. What wine bar? The one from your story. You're seriously analyzing my stories now? No. I saw a tag. She rolled her eyes. It was a group thing. You called it girl talk. It started as girl talk. Drew came by for a drink. Again, I found out after the fact. Because you make everything about Drew. I'm not making it about Drew. Drew keeps showing up in the part you leave out. She stared at me for a second, then laughed under her breath. Do you hear yourself? I did. That was the problem. I heard myself becoming careful, smaller, constantly editing normal sentences so she couldn't twist them. I heard myself saying, I'm not saying, over and over. I heard myself asking permission to have a reaction. The night everything changed was at Tyler's. Tyler did backyard game nights when the weather was decent. Nothing fancy. Folding chairs, paper plates, cheap string lights, a cooler full of drinks, and some board game that half the group would abandon halfway through to argue about rules nobody understood. It was the kind of night Marin usually loved because she could hold court without looking like she was trying. I got there before her. Tyler handed me a plate and said, Marin coming? She said she was running late. Nora was setting napkins on the table. She texted me the same thing. About 40 minutes later, Marin came through the side gate wearing that same bright smile she got when she knew people were looking at her. Finally, Tyler said, Traffic? Marin laughed and dropped her purse onto a chair. No, I stopped by my ex's place. Alex is practicing being normal about it. The backyard went quiet in a way I can still feel. Someone set down a cup too hard. Nora gave this small, awkward laugh, the kind people make when they don't know whether they're supposed to laugh or rescue someone. I kept my face neutral. My first instinct was to answer sharply. My second instinct was to leave. Instead, I looked at Marin and said, That's an interesting way to describe respect. She tilted her head like I had proved her point. See? This is what I mean. Tyler looked between us. Anyone want to start the game? But Marin wasn't done. She reached for a paper plate and said, loud enough for everyone. I told him real men don't get weird about stuff like that. There are moments in a relationship where something breaks, but not loudly. It's not a slammed door or a screaming fight. It's quieter than that. It's hearing someone you love turn your hurt into a joke and realizing they picked the room on purpose. I didn't argue. I didn't ask the group to weigh in. I sat through one round of the game, answered when spoken to, and left early. On the drive home, I didn't play music. I just kept hearing her say, real men don't get weird, like my dignity was something she could test in front of an audience. When I got home, Marin was already texting. Marin, you were so weird tonight. Me? I didn't appreciate being mocked in front of everyone. Marin, I was joking. Me? It wasn't a joke. It was a warning to the room. Marin, that's dramatic. Me? It was accurate. She didn't respond for 20 minutes. Then she sent. Marin, everyone else understands this. Why can't you? That was when I finally understood the shape of it. She wasn't just asking me to trust her anymore. She was training everyone around us to punish me if I stopped. If I said nothing, she got to keep crossing lines. If I said something, the group had already been told I was insecure, controlling, and not mature enough to handle her independence. After that night, I stopped trying to win conversations in private. I started asking for important things in text. Not because I wanted to build some dramatic case file, but because private conversations had become a place where my words changed shape by the time they left her mouth. If she said, "I might see Drew," I answered, "I'm not comfortable with private visits to your ex's place at night, especially when details keep changing." If she said, "You're giving me rules," I answered, "I'm stating what I will and will not stay in." She hated that. "You sound like a lawyer," she told me over the phone. "I sound clear. You sound cold. I sound tired." The real truth came out because of a tablet. We had an old shared tablet we used for recipes, streaming, and planning dinners. It stayed on the kitchen counter most of the time, usually half-charged and covered in fingerprints. Marin had logged into messages on it months earlier when we were coordinating a group dinner, and her phone had been charging in the other room. I never thought about it after that. It was just the tablet. One Sunday morning, I was making breakfast and looking for a saved pancake recipe. The tablet lit up while I was wiping flour off my hands. A message preview slid down from Lena. "Lena, but if Drew says no, are you still staying with Alex?" I stood there with a mixing bowl in one hand and forgot what I was doing. I didn't open Marin's phone. I didn't guess passwords. I didn't go hunting through private accounts. The message was sitting on a shared screen in my kitchen, connected to a chat Marin herself had put there. And because the tablet was already on the message app from the last time she used it, enough of the thread was visible that I didn't have to search. Lena had written, "I just don't think it's fair to keep Alex waiting while you figure this out." Marin had answered the night before, "I'm not keeping him waiting. He doesn't even know there's a decision yet." Lena, that's kind of the point. Marin, I need to see if there's still something there with Drew before I make any final decision. Then the line that made my chest go cold. Marin, Alex would never leave over something this small. He's too steady for that. I set the bowl down. Slowly, carefully, like if I moved too fast, the room would tilt. There was more, but I didn't need much more. Lena had told her, "Don't make Alex the safe option just because Drew feels exciting again." Marin answered, "That's not what I'm doing. I just need to know what I want." Except she did know one thing. She knew she wanted me standing there while she checked whether Drew would choose her. I took photos of the visible messages with my own phone. Not the whole thread. Not every private thought. Just the lines that involved me and proved I hadn't imagined what was happening. Then I closed the tablet and finished breakfast because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. Marin came over around noon with a bag from a bakery, acting cheerful. "I brought muffins," she said. I looked at her standing in my kitchen like it was any other Sunday. Her hair was pulled back. She had one of my hoodies over her arm because she always stole them when my place was cold. For a second, some weak part of me wanted to pretend I had never seen the messages. I wanted the version of us where her coffee order mattered more than Drew's name on a screen. But that version had been over before I knew it. I didn't confront her then. That surprises some people when I tell the story, but I didn't trust the moment. I knew if I started that conversation face to face, she would cry, accuse, explain, redirect, and somehow by the end I would be comforting her for hurting me. So I watched. That sounds colder than it felt. It wasn't a game. It was me finally letting her actions explain themselves without rushing in to help her hide the ending. Over the next few days, I quietly separated the parts of our lives that were easy to separate. I removed my card from the subscriptions we didn't both need. I canceled a couple's dinner reservation that had been under my email. I paid my half of what was already fair and stopped covering future plans. I gathered her things from my place. 2 hoodies, 3 books, a charger, a half-used bottle of shampoo, a silver bracelet she had left on my bathroom shelf, and the tea she liked but I hated. I put everything in a clean box by the front door. I took screenshots of shared calendar entries that had been deleted after the fact, payment notifications that didn't match her stories, public tags where Drew appeared after she had implied she was with someone else, and the group chat from game night, where she later joked. Alex survived me having a past LOL. I didn't send them to everyone. I didn't post them. I didn't call Drew. I didn't need revenge that looked like a scene. I needed an exit she couldn't rewrite. The next Friday, Marin texted me at 6:42 p.m. Marin, are you seriously mad because I saw him again? I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I didn't know what to say. Because I knew exactly what I wanted not to say. I didn't want to call her names. I didn't want to list every hurt. I didn't want to give her a paragraph she could screenshot and show people as proof I was losing it. So I wrote, "Me, no. I'm done being called insecure for noticing disrespect." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Marin, so what does that mean? Me, it means I'm ending the relationship. Marin, over Drew. Me, over what you thought you could do because of Drew. She called immediately. I let it ring. Then she texted again. Marin, answer the phone. Me, no. Important communication can happen in text. Marin, that's insane. Me, it's clear. Marin, you're really throwing away almost 4 years because I have a past? Me, no. I'm leaving because you used your past to humiliate me in the present. Marin, you're punishing me. Me, I'm removing myself. Then I sent the line I had been carrying around since Tyler's backyard. Me, you're free to visit your ex. I'm free to not be in a relationship where my boundaries are treated like a joke. After that, I muted her for the night. I didn't sleep much. Calm doesn't mean painless. I lay there staring at the ceiling, remembering small things I wished weren't real, her laughing with sauce on her chin, her hand finding mine under a table, the way she said my name when she wanted me to stop overthinking. Ending something settled feels like breaking furniture you built yourself. Even if the wood is rotten, you still remember sanding it. The next afternoon, I dropped the box of her things at her place when she wasn't there. She had told me once where to leave packages so they wouldn't be taken. I left the box there and texted, "Your things are outside your door." She replied 5 minutes later. Marin, you couldn't even face me? Me, I'm not doing private conversations where the story changes later. Marin, you're being cruel. Me, calm is not cruelty. She didn't answer that. That night was the couple's dinner. It had been on the calendar for weeks. Tyler had made the reservation, but the confirmation for our 2 seats had gone through my email because I had handled the last change. Marin had told everyone we were coming. I know because the group chat was active all afternoon. Tyler, dinner's still 7. Nora, yep. Marin, Alex and I will be there. I waited a few minutes before answering. Me, I will not be attending. Nora, wait, is everything okay? Marin replied before I did. Marin, he's punishing me because I saw Drew. There it was. The public version, placed neatly in the group chat like a trap. I typed carefully. Me, I'm not discussing this in a group chat. I have ended the relationship because my boundaries were repeatedly mocked and ignored. Nobody answered for a full minute. Then Tyler texted me privately. Tyler, she said you were coming. Are you okay? I sat on my couch, phone in hand. The room clean in that sad way a room gets after you remove someone else's things. Me, I'm okay. I'm not going to make the dinner weird. I just won't show up and pretend this is normal. Tyler, do I need to know anything? Me, she wanted the freedom to keep crossing that line. I gave it to her. I just stopped standing on the other side of it. Tyler, that game night comment was messed up. I stared at that message and felt a kind of relief I didn't expect. Not because Tyler taking my side fixed anything, but because someone else had seen it. Someone else had noticed the part Marin kept trying to make me swallow alone. Me, yeah, it was. I didn't go to dinner. I made a sandwich, watched half of a show, and ignored 3 more calls from Marin. From what I heard later, dinner was tense. Marin tried to keep her version simple. Alex was jealous. Alex hated that she had a past. Alex abandoned her because she refused to be controlled. On its own, maybe that story would have worked. It was modern enough, sympathetic enough, and close enough to what people already worry about in relationships. But timelines have a way of becoming rude when too many people remember different pieces. Nora asked, carefully, was Drew at the wine bar that night? I thought you said you were with Lena. Marin said, it was a group thing. Tyler said, but at game night you said you had stopped by his place right before. Was that the same week? Marin got irritated. Why are we making this a courtroom? Someone else in the group pulled up an old chat and said, you did joke that Alex would never leave over something this small. Marin snapped, because I thought he was more mature than this. That didn't land the way she wanted it to. Friends didn't all turn on her at once. Real life isn't that clean. Some people stayed quiet. Some probably thought I should have fought harder before leaving. Some didn't want to choose a side because choosing a side ruins seating arrangements and birthday plans. But the benefit of the doubt started leaking out of her story. Nora called me 2 days later. I almost didn't answer, but Nora had never been cruel. She had just been uncomfortable. "Hey," she said. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to. It's okay." I shouldn't have laughed that night. I leaned back against my kitchen counter. "You were put on the spot." "I know, but still. You didn't deserve to be made into the punchline." Her voice was quiet. I thought she was joking. Then the timeline stopped making sense. I didn't dump everything on Nora. I didn't send her screenshots like evidence exhibits. I told her only what she needed to know. She wasn't trying to get closure with Drew, I said. She was seeing if he wanted her back before deciding what to do with me. Nora was silent for a moment. "Did she tell you that?" "Not directly. But you know?" "I know enough." Nora sighed. "I'm sorry, Alex." "Thanks. She's telling people you went cold out of nowhere." I figured. It doesn't sound like nowhere anymore. That was the pattern over the next couple of weeks. People didn't come running to me with dramatic apologies. It was smaller. Tyler stopped inviting Marin and me as a pair, obviously. Nora checked in once. Another friend sent. "Didn't realize there was more to the Drew thing. Sorry if I made it worse by staying quiet." One person didn't say anything but removed Marin from the smaller dinner chat and started a new one without making an announcement. Marin noticed. Of course she did. She texted me one night after 11. "Marin, are you happy now?" I didn't answer. "Marin, people are treating me like I cheated." "Me? I didn't tell people that." "Marin, you didn't have to. You made me look awful by leaving." I read that twice. Somehow, even my absence was being turned into an action against her. "Me? I left because staying was making me responsible for your version of the story." "Marin, you're so cold now." "Me, no. You just can't call it jealousy anymore." She called again. I declined again. The Drew part came out through Tyler first, then Nora. Drew had apparently started distancing himself as soon as he realized people knew his name was attached to the breakup. He told Marin he never asked for any of this. He told one mutual acquaintance that he thought they were just talking. He told Marin, according to Nora, "I care about you, but I'm not in a place for anything serious right now." That line would have hurt me months earlier. By then, it just confirmed what had been obvious to everyone except Marin. Drew liked being the ex she would cross a line for. He liked the late-night emotional support. He liked the private dinners that weren't dates unless someone called them dates. He liked feeling chosen over the current boyfriend. But when choosing him came with consequences, he stepped back and acted like he had been an innocent bystander. Marin didn't take that well. She showed up at my place one evening without warning. I saw her through the window near the front door, phone in hand, eyes red. For a second, my body reacted before my brain did. I almost opened the door because for 4 years, if Marin cried, I moved toward her. Then I remembered the tablet. I opened the door only as far as the chain allowed. "We need to talk," she said. "We can text." "Alex, please." "No." Her face twisted. "You're really going to treat me like I'm dangerous?" "I'm treating private conversations like they're not useful for us." "Us?" She laughed, but it cracked halfway. "There's no us because you decided to throw us away. I decided not to be your safe option." She looked down, then back up. I was confused. "I know. That's it. You know. I know you were confused. You were also dishonest." Her eyes sharpened. "I never cheated on you." "I didn't say you did. You're acting like I did." "I'm acting like being kept as a backup was enough." She opened her mouth, closed it, then said, "Drew and I have history. You never understood that." I understood history. I didn't understand why history needed secret dinners, deleted calendar entries, and jokes at my expense. "That's not fair." "It's exact." For once, she didn't have a quick answer. Then she tried a softer voice. "I thought you would fight for us." I looked at her through the narrow opening in the door. She looked smaller than usual, but not because she had suddenly become harmless. She looked like someone whose plan had failed and who wanted the wreckage to count as love. "I did fight," I said. "Every time I asked for honesty instead of pretending I didn't notice. You called that insecurity." I was scared. Of what? Of making the wrong choice. That one almost got me. Not because it excused anything, but because it sounded honest. I nodded. "Then you made one." She stared at me. I said. You chose to keep me while testing whether Drew wanted you. He didn't. That doesn't send you back to me. The tears came then. Real ones, I think. But real tears don't automatically create a real apology. She whispered, so that's it. That's it. I closed the door gently. Not because I wanted to be noble, because slamming it would have made the moment about anger, and I was past anger. After that, I blocked her everywhere except one text thread for practical loose ends. A week later, there were no practical loose ends, so I blocked that too. The fallout wasn't dramatic in the way people online sometimes want it to be. Maren didn't lose every friend overnight. Drew didn't make some public confession. Nobody stood up in a restaurant and exposed anyone. Life just adjusted around the truth. Tyler stopped inviting Maren to smaller gatherings where I would be there. Nora stayed polite with her, but distant. Lena, from what I heard, felt guilty because she had encouraged Maren to figure out her feelings, and then watched that turn into Maren using me as a waiting room. Drew disappeared from the social edges as soon as being seen felt less flattering. The most satisfying part was also the quietest. Maren couldn't use me as proof of stability anymore. She couldn't sit beside me at dinners after spending the afternoon with Drew. She couldn't joke about my boundaries while expecting me to carry her coat to the car. She couldn't tell people I was too insecure to handle her freedom while depending on my calmness to make her look loved. A month later, I ran into Nora at a small dinner Tyler hosted. Maren wasn't there. Nobody made a big announcement about it. There were just 6 chairs instead of 8, one conversation instead of 2, and no awkward performance happening under the table. At one point, Tyler handed me a drink and said, "You good?" I thought about it. "Better," I said. He nodded. "Good." That was all. No speech. No big male bonding moment. Just one friend asking and accepting the answer. Later that night, I went home, put my keys in the bowl by the door, and noticed the couch looked different without Maren's blanket folded on one side. For a second, I missed her. Not the last version of her, but the version from before Drew became a test she refused to admit she was taking. I missed Sunday coffee. I missed lazy movie nights. I missed the comfort of being expected somewhere as a pair. But missing someone is not a reason to return to being disrespected. I used to think maturity meant staying calm no matter what. Maren counted on that. She thought because I didn't yell, I wouldn't leave. She thought because I wanted to be fair, I would accept unfairness if she dressed it up as independence. She thought my steadiness meant I was permanent. She was wrong. A mature boyfriend doesn't need to control who his girlfriend talks to. He doesn't need to compete with an ex, check phones, or turn every old relationship into a threat. But maturity doesn't mean standing still while someone keeps hurting you and calling it freedom. Maren wanted the freedom to keep Drew close while keeping me available. Drew wanted the attention without the responsibility. I wanted honesty, respect, and a relationship where my boundaries were not used as entertainment. In the end, everyone got the freedom they asked for. Maren was free to chase closure with a man who stepped back the moment it required courage. Drew was free to pretend he never meant for things to go that far. And I was free to walk away without begging, without yelling, and without being anyone's backup plan. That was enough for me. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.